Good morning, everyone. It is a wonderful, wonderful morning, and I want to thank the governor, and I want to thank Assemblyman Farrell for allowing me this opportunity to welcome all of you. You know, Denny and I, and I'm sure all of us have a Denny Farrell story somewhere in our midst. Denny and I had the opportunity to represent this park for 24 years, and we literally used to fight as to who actually represented the park or who represented the street. We used to have big fights, so depending on any given day. So I want to thank all of you for being here today. And before we start our program, I want to be able to recognize some of all of our good friends in the house. Certainly, and in no particular order, please believe that. Let me say that again. No particular order. We have our Congressman, the People's Congressman, Charles B. Rangel, who's with us. Waving the cane. As you can see, the Congressman is still raising cane, let's put it that way. We have with us the People's Mayor, Mayor David Norman Dinkins. New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. Congressman Adriano Espaillat. Congressman Gregory Meeks, I believe, is here. The advocate for all the people, the public advocate Tish James. Yours, mine, our New York City Comptroller, and one of Denny's sons, Scott Stringer. The great borough president of Manhattan, Gail Brewer. State Senator Roxanne Persaud is with us from Brooklyn. You will hear from him shortly, but we have the great Speaker of the New York State Assembly, Carl Hastie. Two members of the City Council that I see, we have Councilman Robert Cornegay from Brooklyn. He doesn't need to stand up. Sit down when you get a minute, Robert. Yeah, sit down. And we have Councilmember Ydanis Rodriguez. Ready for the City Council? Will all of our friends from Organized Labor please stand up? Secretary to the Governor, Melissa DeRosa, is with us. Where's Madam Secretary? Probably one of the most powerful persons in this room. Counsel to the Governor, Alfonso David, is with us. One of the reasons why we're all here, the Commissioner of New York State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, Rose Harvey, and all of the other members of the Governor's administration. The great head of the New York State NAACP, Hazel Dukes, is with us. Where did she go? Oh, there she is. Incidentally, she has a picture of Denny from 1979 that she wants to see. So, also walking into the room, who I must acknowledge, certainly between this man, between State Senator, I'll call him Carl McCall, who just walked in the house, State Senator. But certainly Franz Leichter, who with Denny Farrell, Franz Leichter. And I don't know if Denny Farrell and Franz considered themselves visionaries of any sort, but after Denny Farrell was elected in 1974, he and Franz would put in what is known as dry appropriations, because this sewage plant that was constructed was tearing the community apart, was tearing northern Manhattan apart. So they said, well, let's put a park on top of the sewage plant. I'm sure it wasn't sexy back then to put money into a sewage plant or a park on top of the sewage plant, but certainly Denny and Franz, they made it happen for this park that we now call home. So this morning we'll be hearing from several leaders on both sides of the aisle who have had the honor of serving beside and working with Assemblyman Herman Denny Farrell. We'll be hearing from John Flanagan, who's the majority leader of the New York State Senate. We'll be hearing from the Speaker, Carl Hastie, and then we will hear from Herman Denny Farrell himself. Now, throughout his illustrious career, Denny has been a champion for all New Yorkers. Since day one, he has fought tirelessly to give a voice to the voiceless, power to the powerless, and make this state a much better place for all. And today, here on the western edge of Manhattan, we can appreciate one of his many, many achievements. Denny recognized the need for park space in this underserved community, and he boldly pushed to make this park a reality for his constituents and for all New Yorkers. Working together with his colleagues and then Governor Mario Cuomo, Denny's efforts resulted, we can clap for Mario Cuomo, it's not a problem. Denny's efforts resulted in this beautiful, world-renowned park. His leadership on behalf of this community has made him an iconic figure in this area, and so it is especially appropriate that this park will carry his name in perpetuity. And it is no surprise that both parties supported this move. Over the course of his career, Denny has left a lasting impact on the legislature and garnered the respect of every single one of his colleagues, Democrat and Republican alike. You know, although we're sad to see him go and leave the legislature, I think that a person who will replace him will be the district will be in great hands. So I myself want to say thank you to Denny. Dick Godfrey and I were talking about how many governors Denny has served with, and Governor Cuomo, I think, is too many to name. But I think we came up with the number of 7. And one last thing, Denny, of course, I was a student of Denny's, and many of us will, I guess, fight over who knows Denny the best. And as I said about Scott Stringer, Bill Perkins, Councilman Bill Perkins is with us today, and he can talk about, and I see from Councilman Robert Jackson is with us in the House as well. We all fight for the title of being one of Denny's students. Well, I can tell you Denny taught me a couple of things. As we all know, Denny's probably one of the most nattily dressed persons you'd ever want to meet. He always taught me never wear white after Labor Day. And he said, never, ever, ever let your name appear on the ballot twice in the same election. So with that, one of his students, and certainly a man who's become the Senate Majority Leader of the New York State Senate, I give to you John Flanagan.
So good morning, and I am ecstatic. I'm elated to be here, and now having served 31 years in government, I am incredibly proud to be a public servant. I'm incredibly proud to be an elected official. Yeah, Kathy Nolan's, yes. And I'm incredibly proud to have had the opportunity and distinction to serve with Assemblyman Farrell. Now, my father was elected in 1972. So some of us have pedigree and lineage and family history involved in politics, and my father was considered a giant in the Assembly for a wide variety of reasons. So my dad served with the Assemblyman for 12 years. I had the distinction of serving with him for 16, almost as long as Speaker Hastie before I went over to the Senate. So here are my thoughts, and I want to focus on him But I have to tell you, I had a quick conversation with the governor. I said to the governor, you look great. You look really relaxed. And he looked at me and said, that's because I haven't been dealing with you guys for the last couple of months. So he apparently enjoyed his summer, and rightfully so. But as a testament to Assemblyman Farrell, I can look out in the audience. There's a lot of experience and wisdom and really, really good people in the not-for-profit community, the public sector, the private sector, and this is an outpouring of gratitude to an icon and a giant in so many ways, not only for the city of New York, but for Long Island, where I live, for the Southern Tier. I see Donna Lepardo here, for all people across the state of New York. So, my mother has referred to Assemblyman Farrell as Dorian Gray because he's ageless and timeless, and really has, absent the ponytail, not much has changed in many, many years. But I know this, he has been a friend, a mentor, a colleague, a father figure, and you know when I say that with affection, because I came in and under really kind of tragic circumstances, he was one of the people that took me under his wing and did it unabashed. Here I was, a young buck Republican assemblyman. He didn't have to give me the time of day, but he gave me a lot more than time of day, and I have never forgotten that. And in the latter part of my service in the Assembly, I was the ranking Republican on the Ways and Means Committee. So, you know, we went at it, but it was always with diplomacy, graciousness, and always being courteous. And I can also, by extension, I think this is important to say this, we are honoring a great gentleman today, but I also want to add his staff and the people who have supported him for years have been fantastic, fantastic. I'm looking at you, girl, right there, okay? I know a lot of people who are very nice to me, but now, the controller, I don't want to upset the controller, but Assemblyman Farrell taught me a couple of things when I was the Republican on Ways and Means. First of all, always be nice to the staff, which I tried to do anyway. But every now and then he would tell me, just remember, I have the votes. Very subtle, very effective, and even I could figure that out. Very subtle. The controller, that's why I said I don't want to upset him. I can remember being engaged in debate on the budgets, and Assemblyman Farrell would remind me that when you're in Albany, 2 and 2 doesn't always equal 4. If we need to get to a certain point, we're going to figure out how to do it. So, you know, for me, and I'll finish on this point, here's a gentleman who I'm proud, more than anything, to say that I'm his friend. I don't know him as well as some of the other people in the room, but there's an outpouring of support. I can see the smiles and the nods for someone who deserves, I want to say this correctly, this building is being named in honor of Assemblyman Farrell, not after Assemblyman Farrell, which is the way it should be. So when we leave here, let's extol the virtues of people like Assemblyman Farrell. Be proud of who we are, the work that we do, and when we have this fantastic ambassador and representative, it makes it so New York easy to do that. Denny, thank you very, very much.
Part of my remarks. But before I get to my remarks about Denny, I do want to go through the tremendous list of colleagues who have joined us here today to be with Denny. So I'm going to try to run through this really quick like an auctioneer. So we have Assemblymember Abate, Crespo, Derso, Carmen De La Rosa, Michael Dendecker, Jeff Dinowitz, Sandy Gale, Deborah Glick, Dick Godfrey, Pamela Harris, Latoya Joyner, Joe Lento, Donna Lepardo, Shelley Mayer, Kathy Nolan, Linda Rosenthal, Gary Pretlow, Rebecca Seawright, Helene Weinstein, and David Weprin. So I think I got everybody. So to be here, of course, it's bittersweet. You know, selfishly, you don't want Denny to leave, but the part of you who's been knowing that he's been a good friend and wants to spend time with his family, we want to wish him well. But for me, you know, growing up, and Denny, I want to say to you, when you was first elected, I was 7 years old. I just want to Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I saw the look you gave me. But growing up, and when I knew that I wanted to have a career in public service, and it was the gentleman in Manhattan and Harlem, of course, and we have, of course, Mayor Dinkins is here, Congressman Rangel is here. We have the son of Basil Patterson, David Patterson is here, and Percy Sutton. And knowing that I wanted to have a career in public service, you became a fan of the gentleman of Harlem. So, of course, and you say, well, I hope one day when I grow up to be into politics, I could be half the elected official that Denny Farrell was. And that's the reason why I didn't want this out there. I wanted to remind people I am about half the height of Denny Farrell. But to go from being a fan of somebody like Denny, then when you first get elected, to be mentored by somebody like Denny, and then you become a colleague of Denny, and then when I had the opportunity by all of the colleagues here to become the Speaker of the New York State Assembly, to have Denny be a partner. So it's a privilege and honor for me to have really done 4 roles with Denny and everything that he has brought to us. And as that those who've said, and I know that the governor is gonna follow me, but there is nobody else like Denny. The class, the eloquence, everybody liked Denny. Even when you're mad at Denny, you couldn't even really be mad at Denny, because that's just who Denny Farrell is. And so I just wanted to run over a couple of the highlights of Denny, of the many things that he's done in his career. He's one of the earliest advocates for investment in early childhood education and universal pre-K. He led the continuation of the rent control laws. He advocated for more transparency and financial disclosures to combat predatory practices against consumers, instrumental in reforming state budget process, created the conference committees, championed investment in public infrastructure, advocated for summer youth programs, funding and support, early advocate for economic justice and criminal justice reform. He was the longest serving chair of the Manhattan Democratic Party, 28 years. And in that role, this is important to remember, because when I had the opportunity to become the Bronx Democratic County Chair, another place where I tried to emulate what Denny had done. He had became a big champion for the promotion of women and people of color to be elected to the bench, and that's something I did when I was the Bronx County Chair. And so, Denny, we're gonna miss you. You've also done me a big disservice, because now I have to pick somebody to succeed you. And I think that all 108 members, and even a couple of Republicans, have applied for that job as well. But Denny, it is really good for us to be here to congratulate you. Thank you for 42 years of service to this community. And to the state of New York. And it is good that you will always have this place in honor of the service that you've given us. Thank you, Denny.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Hold on a second. I want to be told I want to be the same height as Denny Farrell just once. And this is my opportunity. Boy, it's different up here, Denny. Oxygen is lighter. Welcome. Welcome to the Riverbank State Park, which is a jewel in the state park facility. And let's give the whole park agency a round of applause. To my colleagues who are here, first, Keith Wright, who's done an extraordinary job for the community. He is still doing an extraordinary job for the community and Democratic Party, and he's a great friend. Senator John Flanagan. Now, there is this hasn't been written about, but when a person becomes a legislative leader, they develop some form of speech impediment. It's very interesting. They no longer have the ability to say yes or no. Those two words are never in their vocabulary. So you ask Senator Flanagan or Speaker Heastie a question, and it's, well, oh, I have to go back to the conference. Yeah, well, I need to know all the facts. Let me call you on that later. Let me think it through. But it's never a yes or a no. Hence the endless series of meetings. There was one time I got a firm yes from Senator Flanagan. I was shocked, almost fell off the chair. And that was when I said, what do you think about naming Riverbank Park for Assemblyman Denny Farrell? He said yes. And to Speaker Heastie, who's just doing a great job, obviously he said yes to that one, and that was his only yes. But he's been a fantastic leader for the state. He's been a great partner. Let's give him a round of applause. Now, the other speakers have all talked about, okay, we have to go now, 11:30. It's a park agency rule. Coffee break. We have all spoken about Denny personally. We know Denny's story personally, and the speakers have touched on it. We did an award ceremony for Denny in the mansion back in June, where we talked about his personal life story, which really is extraordinary. And it is the American dream, how you can bring yourself up in this country, and he did that. But today I want to talk about Assemblyman Farrell's professional story, his career as an elected official and what he did. And Riverbank State Park is actually a perfect analogy for that. First, a little context about Denny Farrell and the Cuomos. My father's running for governor in 1982. Lieutenant governor, he's running against Ed Koch. We're 37 points behind in the polls. Ed Koch is extraordinarily popular. He was going to run for governor, then he was going to run for God. He was all set. And nobody supported Mario Cuomo. He couldn't get a campaign manager. I'm the campaign manager, 23 years old, just because nobody in their right mind would take the job. I'm calling through all the Democratic leaders, councilmen, assemblymen, district leaders. I can't find anyone to support Mario Cuomo, right? Because he's going to lose, first of all, to Ed Koch. And even if he were to win, Ed Koch is going to remain the mayor, and why would you annoy the mayor? So, no support for Mario Cuomo. Two people of high rank. Erastus Corning, mayor of Albany, because he believed Ed Koch was anti-upstate, so he was against Ed Koch, and Assemblyman Denny Farrell, Democratic leader of Manhattan, okay? Now, to support Mario Cuomo is the Democratic chair of Manhattan. When Ed Koch was from Manhattan, from Greenwich Village, the darling of the liberals, to support Mario Cuomo from Queens. Queens is over there, wherever there is. You know, Queens is there, but Queens is not here. And he supported Mario Cuomo for one reason. Ed Koch supported the death penalty. And my father opposed the death penalty, and Denny Farrell would never support anyone who opposed the death penalty. Now, it was at extraordinary political risk for the Manhattan County chairman. I mean, he just could have sat it out. But that's not who Denny is. Denny is a man of principle who acts on the principle. My father once said about Denny, Denny is a giant in a world of little people. And I looked at my father when he first said it, and I said, oh yeah, he's very tall. And my father gave me that look like, I need a DNA test because I am not sure you are my son. But his point was, this is a man who in the world of politics, where everything is expediency and everybody's calculating and everybody's tactical, this is a man who just stands up and acts out of principle, consequences be damned. He was also very helpful and kind in the time he took with me. I was a 23-year-old campaign manager. He was the senior political person. I didn't know what I was talking about, so his tutelage was very important. And he taught me 2 lessons: when to shut up and when to speak up. He taught me when to shut up. We were having a discussion with my father in the campaign office on 39th Street. It's the weekend before the election. My father wanted to take the weekend off to get ready for the debate. He had a debate on Monday. My father was very intent on being prepared. He wanted to know the facts, so he wanted to take the weekend off. And then there was going to be the debate on Monday, then the election on Tuesday. So we had this discussion, a vigorous discussion in the office, Denny, myself, and my father. You can't take the weekend off. You can't take the weekend before the election off. One day to get ready for the debate, the other day you have to be out there, you have to be campaigning. We go back and forth. My father disagrees. I'm taking off the 2 days. My father walks out of the room. Then he says to me, this is a mistake. This is going to be close. This is a mistake. We have to get him to campaign this weekend. I say, yeah, you're right. We have to go down there and we have to convince him. I have this picture in my office in Albany. We go downstairs, get to the street. My father is already in the car, and the car is coming down the block. My father sees us on the sidewalk, and this car screeches to a stop. And he gets out of the car, and his eyes are like this, and he's got those fists clenched, and I see him walking around the car towards the sidewalk. This is not going to be a fists of fury moment, I'm afraid. So he comes up, because he knew we were there to relitigate the issue. My father was not big on relitigation as a general concept, unless he was relitigating. That was okay. But you did not relitigate with him. And I start the same argument. You have to work this weekend, and it's important. If you lose by a point, you're going to regret it. You don't need 2 days in 1 day. And he is red, and he is yelling, and horns are honking because he's backing up traffic. And this goes on for about 5 minutes. He says some unkind things, referenced birth by the postman, gets in the car, and leaves. Denny and I go back upstairs, and I say, Denny, you did not say a word during that whole argument. You said we were going to go down there. We go down there, and I get beaten to a pulp in the middle of 39th Street, and you don't say a word. When you're in my office in the conference, you look at the picture. You see Denny's like moving away slowly, like just backing away, like he just happened to be walking by, and this conversation was happening when he happened to be walking by. I said, Denny, what was that we? He said, Andrew, you have to learn how to read the audience. He said, it was the right message, but it was the wrong time. So he taught me when to shut up, but he also taught all of us what it meant to be in elected office, what it meant to use that office to do great things. Not little things, but big things. You have an opportunity in elected office. They don't promise you results when you're in elected office, but they promise you the opportunity to try to obtain results. And Denny did it. Denny took on all the tough ones at a very tough time. Now, Denny is before you have an African-American mayor. Thank God, Mayor Dinkins. before you have an African American governor, before you have an African American president, you just had a handful of African American Congress people. Charles Rangel was the leader of the group. And this was a real fight. This was a real fight for basic rights and basic justice. And they were the trailblazers. You know, it's easy to go second. It's hard to break that path and go first. The first one down the path is the one who gets cut and scarred and has the hardest time pushing their way through. Denny Farrell, Basil Patterson, God rest his soul, Charles Rangel, David Dinkins, these were the trailblazers, and we followed their path. Now, Riverbank State Park is a metaphor for the type of fight they had. And this park, as beautiful as it is now, actually tells the story of injustice in society and why we need the type of elected officials that we have. 1960, federal government says to New York, you have to have a wastewater treatment plant because we were dumping raw sewage into the Hudson. This is 1960. City comes up with a site to build a wastewater treatment plant on the west side of Manhattan, 70 to 72nd Street. Okay? The west side of Manhattan, 77 to 72nd Street, opposes the wastewater treatment plant. Why? Because they did not want a wastewater treatment plant and the inconvenience that comes with it, and they opposed it. And City Hall buckled. Why? Because it was 72nd Street. This was a powerful community. They had resources. They could start lawsuits. So the city buckles, moves the plant to where it is today. John Lindsay comes in 1965. Community is outraged. David Dinkins, district leader at the time, was one of the fighters against the plant. John Lindsay has an approach to appease the community opposition. He gets Philip Johnson, same person who designed Lincoln Center, and Philip Johnson designs a fountain that is going to be on the top of the sewage treatment plant and shooting up. The community proposes another alternative site for the placement of the fountain, which was very close to Mayor Lindsay. And that idea dies. 1968, there's a new idea. We'll build a park on top of the sewage treatment plant, because Japan was building parks on top of the sewage treatment plant. And the community says, now this is a great idea. They design a park. Design comes back 1973. And the government says the park is too expensive. Now, the park is too expensive. They're spending $1.3 billion to build the sewage treatment plant, the most expensive public expenditure of a non-military nature in 50 years. They're spending $1.3 billion to build the plant, but they won't spend money to build the park. Why? Because it was Harlem. They didn't have to. That's what they were thinking. Community opposition continues, continues, continues. My father becomes governor in 1983. Denny Farrell then taught me how to speak up. And he went to my father, and my father loved Denny. Loved. They were cut from the same cloth. And then he said, we have to do something. We have to make this park a reality. The community has suffered long enough. It's unfair. It should have never been moved. The only reason they moved it was the rich white people at 72nd Street didn't want to have it. So they moved it up to the poor black folk up in Harlem. The same reason why 5 out of 6 bus depots are located in Harlem. The same reason why the only 24-hour marine garbage transfer station is located in Harlem. The same reason why when we have to cite a homeless facility or a prison or a substance abuse facility, we cite it in Harlem or poor communities across the city, because that's the easier place for government to put it. That's why. It is a pure injustice. And then he said, we have to build a park. Now, the price tag for the park, $130 million. 1982, $130 million is all the money in the world. It's an unbelievable sum of money. I don't care dry appropriation, wet appropriation, mildewy appropriation. It was just a tremendous amount of money. And my father said, with Denny, we will spend the $130 million on the park. Then what happens, because it's never easy, the park people oppose the park. Why? Because state parks are supposed to be in places of natural beauty, waterfalls, scenic landscapes. And there are no waterfalls or scenic landscapes in Harlem. So they oppose the state spending the money because they want another state park built in a place of natural consequence. To them, my father said this. It was a short conversation, but a powerful one. And the $130 million was pledged to this now truly magnificent, magnificent facility. 28 acres, Olympic-sized swimming pool, tennis court, recreation center, theater, an unbelievably beautiful, fantastic facility that would not have happened but for the persistence and the courage and the tenacity of one man, Assemblyman Denny Farrell. And Denny is retiring, but it's very important that Denny's model of service lives on, because it is the essence of good government. It's taking on the real fights that make a real difference in people's lives. It's about social justice and racial justice and economic justice. And taking on fights if you weren't afraid to lose, and taking on fights that you're not afraid to get bloodied. Because, my friends, the good fight is a fight. Don't kid yourself. It's about power, it's about money, and people have it, and other people need it, and that is a tension that is not easily or gracefully concluded. It is a fight. And you look at the issues that we have conquered today, the great accomplishments from this legislature and this senator and this assemblyman and this speaker, they have all been the tough ones that changed people's lives. We passed marriage equality, not because it was easy, but because it was hard. $15 minimum wage to change people's lives. Gun control to save lives. Paid family leave so people can live with decency. Free college, so every child who puts their head on the pillow tonight knows that they can go to college. Those are the hard ones. And that's what their lesson is. That's the lesson of David Dinkins and Charlie Rangel and Mario Cuomo and Denny Farrell. You take on the tough ones. And we have tough ones all around us today that we still have to address. The issue of public education. And the truth is we have two education systems still. Not public-private, but one for the rich and one for the poor, one for minorities and one for the whites. That is true. We have a duality in our criminal justice system. We have Rikers Island, where if you're poor and you're minority, you have one reality in the criminal justice system. And if you're rich and you can make bail, you have another reality. We have a federal government that is antithetical to everything we believe as New Yorkers. They have declared war on immigrants. By the way, the war on immigrants isn't against all immigrants. It's not against the white immigrants. It's against the black and the brown ignorance. Their toleration of the ignorance of the Ku Klux Klan, believe it or not. KKK talking about real Americans. We're the real Americans. You're the real Americans? Unless you're a Navajo or a Sioux or an Apache, you are not a real American. President Trump is talking about DACA and rescinding DACA, which is just feeding the beast of bigotry red meat. That's all this is about. And Denny's example and my father's example says you stand up and you fight this fight, not because it's easy, but because it's tough. You want to talk about North Korea as a threat, and it is. I'll tell you another threat. It's racism. Because racism is a cancer in the body politic. It turns one cell against the other, and it starts the battle from within. And only Americans can defeat America. And these lines and these divisions and this racism and this bigotry is the greatest threat that this country faces. And New York's example is the exact opposite. We believe in diversity. We believe in welcoming people from all over the globe because we're not one religion, we're not one race, we're one idea. If you come here and you work with us, you join the family of New York, e pluribus unum, out of many one. Denny Farrell's model of government service says it all. It's not about the positions you take. It's not about the races you win. It's about the principles you hold dear, and it's about what you accomplish for the people you serve. My brother, Assemblyman Denny Farrell, you have set the bar high for all of us, and for those of you who follow you. We're going to have a difficult time living up to your standard. But you've been a great teacher, and a great mentor, and a great role model for generations who will come. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Governor. I'm going to need a few of your security people. There are about 50 women and men in this room who probably worked harder than I do to get this plant done correctly. And they're going to remind me on the streets as I walk. Ms. Rocker, are you here? And Rocker. Are you here? She was a lady that was very much involved. Everyone has made a very nice speech and given me a lot of things to say, so I'm going to be careful what I say. I do like that picture of you and I, and we're backing up. It was a nice picture because I know he had hit his son before he hit me. And he told us he was going to win by 7%. And the Post was saying he was going to lose and Koch was going to win. And he said, I'm going to win by 7% and that's it. And because his back was bothering him. Mario had a back from baseball or something. So he said it was going to be 7%. And that's exactly what he won by. Yeah. So, I mean, and that was the greatest thing that happened for us in this state. So I've always, and then I remember one time I got a call when cell phones were just coming in. I get a call, Denny, get off the phone and go to a dry phone and call me back. I said, oh, we're getting on the airplane. Remember that? Everybody, there was a time when there was a question of whether he would run for president or not. So when he said to get off the phone, I figured that cell phone, and go to a real phone, he was going to tell me, we're going to do it. So I get to the place, and he gets on the phone, and he says, you better tell so-and-so if he does that again, I'm going to come and get him personally myself. I said, whoa. The person he wanted me to replay that to did shut up after that. No, so it was a lovely time. The things that go and that happen here. This plant, I think it was 1939, they decided to build plants in New York. It started with LaGuardia. And they started building them. And this was one of the last of the old-fashioned ones. They're all much smaller and much faster and do much better than this one does. But this plant had to be sold. And to build this park, I remember on a very, very, very hot day in 1970, 1970, and they came into the community to sell this plant. And they were going to do it by putting this park on top of it originally. And they showed us all of these beautiful areas and what was going to be the original plan, which was done in 69, I think it was. And they came and they said, we're going to build this road, we're going to do, and they were going to put dirt on either side. So it was going to look as if this was a mound and you wouldn't see the plant. That didn't last very long. But we fought for that. And Rockefeller, and one day, Percy Sutton is dead, so we'll never know what was done, because it was supposed to be at 63rd Street, and they moved it up here. And Percy was the borough president, and I never knew why, and we never did find out. Charlie, do you know? Okay, another solving.
Charlie knows.
Yes. So we got this plant here, and it was really very interesting. But as was said, also, the price, it was really not 130, it was 129 exactly. 129, and we held to the 129. And one day, I think the governor came and looked on this, and it was just flat ground after they'd finished building everything. And then they put in this beautiful park. But this park was the same then as it is now. And it was designed. And it's a beautiful place. It does a lot. And the people in this room, I see friends and people there. I thank you very much for coming. I see stories everywhere. Good stories. No, find friends of persons I've worked with who have done a lot to help me, and I've had a lot of enjoyment in this life. So we're going to continue working around. I've got a whole bunch of things I want to do that I couldn't do because I was in Albany. Now I can do it here because we have. If you're on your way out, you'll also see one of the things that this governor has done is, though we really, I'll say it, we have money trouble. Since 2008, we have been tight, and he has done a fantastic job of keeping us going. And if you turn your TV on, you'll think this is the grandest plan they put out there. Every time I put out, I want to jump up and say, New York, that's the place to go. He does a fabulous job. The real reason I'm leaving is when it comes time to pay for the Mario Cuomo bridge, there is going to be a slight problem. He has done a fabulous job. When they were saying originally that bridge was supposed to be something like $13 billion, and then it kept dropping and dropping and dropping. Now I'm going to stop now because the 2020, I think, is the time. But he's done a good job of building things and doing better things for us. So if you look out here, we have a wonderful new bridge. When I was a young man, yeah, the Mexicans love it. No, they go down and play volleyball down there, and you'll see folks now. And I told them they would never have that finished on time, and I drove by it this morning. It was done. It's finished. I give them. Your folks do very good work. So I could dabble and dribble for a while. And of course, my colleague, thank you. I'm not supposed to say this. You don't have to go to the other one that comes after this one when I'm laying it out straight, They told me it wouldn't go well. My son is going, I told you so. No, I really enjoy being here with you and seeing all of you. I hear we're going into another room and we can talk personally. And I thank you all very much for being here. If the people that work for me in one point or another, will you please stand up? Thank you. Let me tell you, I'm up here because they're down there. If two people had stood up, I'd be back there with the broom getting ready to sweep. So you've all done a wonderful job. Where's Marcia? Oh, there's Marcia. Yeah, no, she walked into my office in 1975. Be careful. Yeah, she was in a baby carriage, right? Your mother, I got out of that one. She has done a fabulous job. And I see Carl, he and I'm now the last of our class that went in 1974 when we were elected. Carl went in, came in with us. And of course, Dick Gottfried. One of the reasons I quit is because I would like to catch up and be the longest serving, but Dick Gottfried is 12 years old and he's got 48 years in. I'm not catching up, so it ain't worth trying. So to all of you, once again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Very good. I'm telling the people now who asked you for a job. On the count of three, can we say thank you, Denny Farrell? 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Denny Farrell. Love it, love it, love it. Now, as most of you know, and we're almost finished with the program, but people in public life, we don't get to serve in public life, but for some very important people. And so, right here in the front row, we have the family of Assemblyman Herman Denny Farrell. Raise your hand. Sophia, Barbara, Monique, Herman Jr. There you go. Paul Barnes. God damn, I haven't seen Paul in a long time. All right? We have the family, the Farrell family, who have been devoted public servants, all of them, for the last 30, 40 years. So I want to say thank you to the family so much. We know you don't get here by yourself. There's one person, two persons that are here that must be acknowledged, and there's a reason we've acknowledged one already. And I've mentioned her, that's the Commissioner of the State Parks, Rose Harvey, who's right here. She has made this place an absolute jewel. But also, the director of this park, a man by the name of Maurice Hicks. Is Maurice Hicks around here? Where's Mo Hicks? Mo Hicks. Mo Hicks, right there. Mo Hicks, come here for a minute. Walk right up here, Mo. Come on, I don't have a lot of time. The governor's here. Let's go. Let's go. So now people are going to get mistaken because they're going to see, stay right there, Denny Farrell, Riverbank State Park. Denny ain't got one job to give with this name right there, all right? So don't have your cousin call him asking him for a job at Riverbank. You got your little brother needs a little work here, something like. You don't ask Denny. Denny usually comes here on Saturdays. Used to come with Sophia and to the merry-go-round. I used to come and try and play basketball on Sundays. But the man you have to see, Maurice Hicks. All right, Maurice Hicks. I know you're going to get me later, right? I know you're going to get me later. So with that, I want to say thank you, Denny, for your many years of public service. Thank you on behalf of this community. You are the consummate public servant. You have done it not only with your heart, but you've done it with your soul. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of this Harlem community. You and I together represented this park. We were almost like two sentinels in front of the New York Public Library, guarding and protecting this park. Whenever they needed money for pavement, whatever, we tried to give it. So I just want to say thank you, Denny. And you know, this has been a dream deferred for many, many years. This park, as the governor so aptly gave the history, this park that Denny gave some history, was a dream deferred. So in honor, in paraphrasing Langston Hughes, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up and fester like a raisin in the sun? No, it becomes the Denny Farrell Riverbank State Park. Thank you very much.